Yo, still bills, what's the deal? Man, I'm gonna pick up my son, get his ass home, man. I need all my babies in the house with me. But peep game, man, I want to talk about whether or not Janibek is being ducked. Is Andrade swerving Janibek? Is that a duck or is that a calculated chess move? And if you're being fair about the situation, you have no other choice but to say you can see both sides of the argument. And what I mean by that is this. Canelo has been vilified as being a duck since 154 pounds. Because, oh man, he's swerving all the best fights in the division that he's in and running to the next division north. He's been getting hit with that for years, man. Even though the fighters that he's fighting in the higher ups, they're undefeated world champions. The majority of them. You know, they're quick to bring up, what's that fool's name? Rocky Fielding and goddamn Abby Yildirim. Oh, what did they do to deserve the fight? It's not so much of what it is that they did to deserve the fight. Rocky Fielding, he was a crash test dummy. Not everybody can move up, fluctuate it between weights like that, man. Some people need to take it slow and gradually move up. And sometimes when they gradually move up, that first time they take a dip in that pond, they may not be able to swim in them waters, so they go back down to the division that they originally came from, man. I personally didn't think he would knock out Rocky Fielding because he didn't knock out Chavez Jr. So I'm like, he's not going to knock dude out. I just think he's going to fuck this nigga up. And I was wrong. It's 2 left feet. 2 left feet. He violated that dude. I thought he was going to beat on this nigga for 12 rounds. He brutally beat on this dude. So that's what Rocky Fielding was for, man. Like, let me test the waters out up here at 168. And then with Abney Yildirim, he was a mandatory. Whether or not he asked for that mando, he was a mando. Get him out the way now, so it's nothing blocking me on my path to undisputed. Smart thing to do. Alright, cool. So, and even before, after Rocky Fielding, before we even get to Abney Yildirim, we get to Sergey Kovalev. And yeah, Sergey Kovalev did have a quick turnaround fight after the Anthony Yarde fight. It was a quick turnaround. I won't deny that whatsoever, man. But what people fail to realize when they bring this topic up is he also sent Beterbiev a contract. That doesn't sound as soothing, though. That doesn't sound as soothing telling a motherfucker, a dude that you hate and that y'all continue to vilify, that he's about to go and fight a bona fide champion with a 100% knockout ratio in his division. That shit is it's not as soothing, because that that shatters all of the claims that y'all are trying to make, and all the claims in the picture y'all are trying to paint this man as. It no longer feeds that narrative. It goes against that grain. So Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, Sergey Kovalev, all of these dudes are just, never mind. I'm not even gonna go down that path. I'm not even gonna go down that path because that's gonna be way off topic and go into some other shit, man. But the fact of the matter is, he's been demonized as that. Now, granted, you have an argument with Andrade in the sense because, he did vacate his straps to jump up a division. You can argue that. You can argue that, but you also have to look at the fact that when he went to honor a mandatory in Sergey Derevianchenko. When he went to honor that mandatory, Sergey Derevianchenko priced himself out of that fight. He priced himself out of that fight. And that's a duck. That's a duck, especially when you turn around and fight somebody for a lesser price. So he priced himself out of that fight, and he just so happened to do it around about the time the deadline was. He needed to have an opponent etched in stone by the deadline. They didn't make that happen. He gets stripped. So it's like, man, if I'm, this is another obstacle that I'm gonna have to go through. I got to go through 2 and 3 more fights just to go undisputed. I don't feel like doing like, y'all bullshitting. I'm good. Y'all can have these belts. Y'all can have these belts. You gave him, he relinquished his titles and he started having a little bit of fun. So you can argue both sides as far as Canelo ducked Andrade. You can argue both sides. you can. You can argue both sides. Just like you can argue both sides with Andrade. Now, Andrade has never fought nobody as skilled as Janibek. I don't give a fuck what nobody says, man. But even with Janibek, there's people who are what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of acquiescing Andrade's decision to swerve Janibek. They're kind of accommodating him and bowing down to that and giving him, excuses as to why he should be. Oh, if he beat him, they're gonna say, who is he? He ain't fought nobody. That's a goddamn lie. All hardcores know who Janibek is. And if that's the case, it would be the same with Canelo and Andrade. Andrade was fighting on a Thursday night, like a year or two ago. No marquee fighter is gonna be fighting on a Thursday night. Well, people got to go to sleep at a certain time because they have to be at work the next day. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, it's just the energy is not being reciprocated. It's not being reciprocated, and it's corny. It's corny as all fuck. So yeah, you can most definitely argue that Andrade that he ducked. You can argue that. Because it honestly looks like that. He running. Because he was practically begging Jaime Munguia to fight him. Yeah, you're my mandatory. Why you acting so scared of, you don't want no title? Come on, man. Come on, Mr. Mandatory. Let's get into this. He was more than willing to accommodate Jaime Munguia. But now that it's Janibek, it's no. I don't know about all that. You see what I'm saying? It's not the same energy being reciprocated from the fans and from Andrade. It's not the same energy. Cause like he was not trying, like, hey man. He didn't give Janibek that same energy he gave Jaime. And anybody saying that he did is being dishonest. Because the same amount of motherfuckers know Janibek, know Andrade. People do not know Andrade like that. Sorry to tell you, but they don't. But on the flip side, it's a smart move for him to vacate his strap at 160, move up, and fight for a title eliminator. That's smart on his behalf. I don't see anything wrong with the move. I don't see nothing wrong with it at all. It makes sense. You beat Janibek. Cool. You beat a credible foe, and I think Janibek is I think that's a better win on his resume than Zach Parker. I think that's a better win on his resume. But after that, what's the next stop? Golovkin and Murata, they're both tied up. Jaime Munguia is going nowhere near you. Charlo isn't coming to holler at you. So where do you go? Where you go next? Nobody knows. You dig? It's a mystery. It's that bit on. I played Arkham Asylum, and like the when he on Batman, you fight the Riddler. He It's those question marks, you dig? If it's a question mark anywhere on the stage, that means, you know, it's a trophy there, it's a puzzle there that can be solved by the Riddler, all that shit. That's what that shit would be as far as it pertains to Andrade if he was to beat a Janibek. Because there's, you know, there's really nobody left. There's really nobody that's willing to, you know, to get in the ring with him at 160, other than cats that he's worked too hard for to even acknowledge at this point in time. So you do the smart thing and you move up and you fight for that, and not just, you know, a title eliminator, but the face of the division is just a division north. The face of the sport is just in a division north of yours. You're a champion. All I have to do is vacate my title and I can possibly become a mandatory. Oh yeah, cool. I'll do that. I'll do that. So I can see both sides of the argument, man. People gotta get to the point where it's like, all right, man, you can stay partial on the situation. You did. You can find that middle ground to operate in, where you can see and understand both sides of the argument. Because there's no way you can't understand both sides of the argument as it pertains to Andrade and Janibek. You can't. You can't. There's no way you can't understand that. There's no way you can't understand why this man is ducking, and there's no reason why you can't understand why he vacated his strap. I think you're being very dishonest if if you can't be understanding for both sides of the coin as far as this situation is concerned. It's a smart thing to do. It's a smart thing for him to do, to move up. Pause. Alright, I'm back. But there's no way you can't understand both sides of the argument. And if you're gonna operate within the realm of truth, you gotta be able to understand that. All right, I can be partial to both arguments. I can be partial, I can be understanding to both sides of the argument. And that's what that is. And that's where I'm at. And depending who I'm arguing with is the ground that I'm gonna stand on. I'm gonna argue with somebody who's being overly they're just being overly critical of a Canelo Alvarez as it pertains to Andrade. And I'm gonna argue that Andrade ducked. I'm gonna argue that. And then for somebody who's being overly critical of Demetrius Andrade, saying he ducked Janibek, and there's just no sort of middle ground or understanding and commonality in the, and even trying to get a better understanding as to why he did what he did, I'm gonna argue that he didn't duck. And I'm gonna do it with a smile on my face. Because I'm in the middle. I'm partial to both sides of the argument. That's how people need to learn how to operate. You just find that common ground. You be like, yeah, I get that, I understand that, and keep it pushing, and just move forward. And hopefully y'all can come to not a mutual understanding, but just a mutual understanding. Sometimes, well, most motherfuckers you won't, because they want to argue, and the sentiment that they're pushing is more soothing to them. It's more comforting. It tickles their fancy to say that Canelo is ducking black fighters and all that bullshit. So yeah, man, that's just that's what it is at the end of the day, man. That's what it is at the end of the day. Did he duck? Possibly. Was it a calculated, chess move? Yes, it absolutely was. Was it a duck? Yeah. I'm not even gonna say possibly. Yeah, it was a duck. It was a duck. But it was a calculated duck. It was a smart duck. And the ends justify the means. You dig? So that's how I'm feeling about it, man. Don't argue with me about it, because I like to argue. But I'm not, I'm not overtly biased on any boxer or whatever. I'll keep that shit a stack, like a real nigga do. So I'm out, man. Deuces.